Alright, so since it's Royal Rumble coming up this weekend, I thought it might be fun to go ahead and choose a past Royal Rumble and just review it, just for fun. So I was thinking I didn't want to do one that's too old or too recent, so I kind of just settled on Royal Rumble 2006. I didn't look at the match or the card or anything like that. I just went right into it. Figure I kind of just pick one at random and just go with it. And man, this was this was pretty nostalgic just to see some of these guys. Like I said, it's not too old, but it was, very 2006. There was some really goofy, goofy stuff on here, and there was some really good stuff on here too. I really liked this show. Well, I wouldn't say I really liked it. It wasn't the worst Rumble, but it wasn't really that great. It had kind of a really epic feel to it, though. They were doing the Roman Coliseum gimmick with it, and it came off pretty awesome, but it also didn't really deliver in every department. One thing I didn't like is the Royal Rumble wasn't the main event. I think the Royal Rumble should always be the main event because you kind of burn the crowd out. The Royal Rumble match itself just goes on for so long that once it's over and the people see the winner of the Royal Rumble, they're kind of dead for everything else. For instance, at Royal Rumble 2006, they did two more matches after the Royal Rumble, and the matches were good, but just after the Royal Rumble, it kind of killed the crowd. But other than that, it was a pretty good show. The crowd was awesome for the first match, so I'll get right into the match. The first one was a six-way Texas Tornado match. Open invitational to any former and the current Cruiserweight champion. So you basically have Kid Cash, who's the champion, versus Funaki, Jamie Noble, Paul London, Gregory Helms, and Nunzio from the FBI. And Gregory Helms, he was the Hurricane in the past, and that's when he won the Cruiserweight Championship, so he's eligible to be in this. The match starts, and they all go for roll-ups. They start doing a lot of hard, fast action moves. I really liked this match. The crowd was into it. They were, oohing and eyeing at everything that happened. So it started off really good, the show. And this first match was awesome. At one point, Paul London, like all the guys start doing suicide dives onto each other. And Paul London is the last guy left. He climbs to the top rope and does a shooting star to the outside on top of everybody. And I don't know if he hit the mat really hard. I mean, I know a couple guys were able to catch him and break his fall, but it looked like he hit that mat hard, like right on his face. But he got right up and he looked okay. He climbed to the top rope. Shane Helms hit a swinging neck breaker off the top rope onto him. Kid Cash then grabbed Paul London and hit a brainbuster on him. So he must have been fine because he was taking crazy bumps after that. Jamie Noble gets Funaki into a Dragon Sleeper. Shane Helms comes to break it up. He throws a kick. Noble ducks it. Shane Helms grabs him. They kind of hold each other for a second, and then they try and throw each other out. But Shane Helms reverses it and tosses Noble out, hits Funaki with a Shining Wizard, and gets the win, becoming the new Cruiserweight champion. Greg Helms was awesome here. This was during his heel run, so the crowd was booing him. All the other Cruiserweights kind of attacked him at one point during the match and just started beating down on him. But for him to be able to pull out the win, that was pretty cool. The backstage segment that comes next is Vince with Tori, Victoria, and Candice. And this was just Really disturbing. Vince is just hitting on these girls, and this continues throughout the show. Every time they go to the backstage where the wrestlers spin the wheel and they get to pick their number for the Royal Rumble, Vince is always back there doing something creepy and disturbing to these girls. It was just really uncomfortable. I don't know if it's because I've heard, rumors and stuff that Vince has had affairs with these women, or a few select women, but it just knowing that made this segment come off a lot worse. Like, that is definitely sexual harassment, but, it's wrestling. So, the next match is Mickie James versus Ashley, with Trish Stratus as a special guest referee. And they're doing that gimmick where Mickie James is in love with Trish. So, backstage, she tells Trish she loves her, and that she hopes she makes the right decision out there. Trish doesn't want any part of it. She's annoyed by it. Mickey's creeping her out. So the match starts. Ashley starts working on Mickey's arm. Mickey's getting frustrated. She's running around screaming. At one point, she picks up Ashley and runs her into the pole on the outside, stomach first. Ashley just loses it, starts beating up on Mickie James, just going crazy, punching her. Trish pulls her off. She goes right back to beating up Mickie. And she's climbing the turnbuckle to do the, where they punch them 10 times and the crowd goes 1, 2. And the crowd actually starts booing Ashley. I guess because she's just violently attacking Mickie. But when she's up there doing the 10 punches, Mickie pulls her tights, power bombs her, gets the win. She runs around the ring, hugging Trish, trying to, touch her. And that was it. They go backstage where Vince is being creepy. He's asking the divas if they have any tattoos. They're showing him their tattoos. And this was actually pretty funny because the Big Show comes in and says, "What are you guys doing? Showing tattoos? I got some tattoos." And Vince is having no part of that, but that part was actually really funny. And Rey Mysterio gets his number, and he says, Eddie Guerrero, because Eddie Guerrero died, I believe, in November 2005, so he had, just recently passed away. So Rey says, "I hope Eddie, helps me get a good number." He draws, he looks at it, and he just starts laughing, saying, "You got me, Eddie." So they kind of use that for the backstage segment, and then the next match is JBL with Jillian Hall versus the Boogeyman. Holy crap, this guy, I assume he's eating real worms. I have not heard otherwise. And this poor guy wants to be on TV so bad, he's willing to eat worms. It comes across as sad, trying way too hard. I mean, he's not the best wrestler, so I guess he's got to do something. But, there are other guys who are horrible wrestlers, and they don't eat worms. Like Mason Ryan. But Boogeyman comes out. He crawls out and eats worms. He smashes a clock onto his forehead. He's chasing JBL. JBL's running and hiding behind Jillian. And eventually he throws Jillian at the Boogeyman, who crawls on top of her and just starts dripping worms onto her body. Oh, just really goofy stuff here. Eventually they have a match. It's not a good match. It's pretty basic stuff. JBL goes for the clothesline from hell. Boogeyman dodges. JBL hits his shoulder into the pole. Boogeyman hits him with a pump handle slam for the win, and that's it. It wasn't a good match, but at least it was short, and it was really short. I think Boogeyman's entrance might have been longer than this entire match. So we go backstage to more Vince, and Shelton Benjamin gets his number. They do some comedy with Shelton's mama. Melina and Shelton both say, Melina says Eminem are going to eliminate Michaels for Vince. Shelton says, I'm going to eliminate Shawn Michaels for Vince. And, Vince is happy about that. They're doing their feud where it's the McMahons versus Shawn. So they're kind of at one of the peak of their feud right now. So he wants people to eliminate Shawn Michaels from the Royal Rumble. Then, after everybody leaves, Vince is sitting on the couch with the divas, Tori, Victoria, and Candice, and he's still talking about those tattoos. And Tori has this little dog with her, and he says, does she have a tattoo? And at this point, Vince is even hitting on the dog. It is... It's funny, but it's just weird. It's just bizarre. It's so funny to see Vince do stuff like that. And then they go to the Royal Rumble match. So, they got 30 guys, and Lillian Garcia's telling everybody the rules. The Spirit Squad comes out and interrupts her. This is where you actually get to see some, old Dolph Ziggler before he became, who he is today when he was just a member of the Spirit Squad. I can't remember what his name was in that, but this gimmick was horrible. This is probably one of the worst gimmicks, I think, in WWE history is the Spirit Squad. It was just... Nobody cared about these guys. They come out, they do a cheer, and then they leave. And that was it. Lillian tells everybody the rules of the Royal Rumble. Lillian Garcia messes up so bad announcing this. I mean, horrible. She screws up words left and right. You should actually watch just the Royal Rumble match from 2006, if you can find it online, just to hear her screw this up at the beginning. I don't think anyone's done a worse job than this, before or since, just for the sheer amount of stuff she screws up saying. I think she even screwed up Miami, Florida. She said it wrong or something, because that's where the event took place, and I think she even actually messed that up. But anyway, Triple H is entrant number 1. Rey Mysterio is number 2. He comes out with Eddie's Lowrider. I'm just going to go through some highlights here, basically some of the cooler stuff that happened. They did have 2 legends in the Royal Rumble. One was Tatanka. One was John Laurinaitis' brother, Road Warrior Animal. And he comes out with these with these gigantic green neon shoulder pads. I don't know why he didn't just go with the red like the Road Warriors always did, but he comes out with green neon pads and it looks goofy. Really goofy. RVD is in this Royal Rumble. He's probably one of the most over people. Besides Rey Mysterio, and I mean, I'm counting him because the crowd keeps chanting Eddie. At one point, Chavo Guerrero comes out and the crowd starts chanting Eddie. I mean, everybody is chanting Eddie. It was pretty awesome to watch that. Matt Hardy is in this, and at one point, he actually gets raped by Viscera. I mean, Viscera was doing his sexual sex machine or something gimmick, and he does that move where he just runs across the ring, jumps on the guy who's laying on his stomach and just starts humping them. And that has got to be the most degrading move to take in wrestling history. I mean, that is worse than the stink face or a Bronco Buster, anything like that. This is the worst. And Matt Hardy just had to take it. If it was me, I would not have agreed to do that. But he did, and Matt Hardy actually, during this entire Royal Rumble, and this was back in 2006, and I know he's had a lot of problems since, and he's got his issues or whatever, but he was really sloppy looking. He looked like he wasn't coordinated at all. He was kind of, I don't know, he just hasn't been very good lately, and he was just really sloppy here, which says a lot because this is back in 2006, so he wasn't anywhere near the shape he's in now. So back then, he was still in relatively good shape and still looked really just sloppy. Like he didn't care. I mean, the man just got raped by Viscera, so I understand that, but he was looking bad before Viscera raped him, so I'm not sure what was up with that. Shawn Michaels eliminates Shelton Benjamin, who goes after him, tries to throw him out, but Shawn Michaels ducks and eliminates Shelton. Well, at this point, Vince McMahon's music hits, and he walks to the ring really pissed off looking. He stands at the apron. He's yelling at Michaels. Michaels is like, "What are you doing out here?" All of a sudden, from behind, Shane McMahon comes and tosses Shawn Michaels out. So Michaels is really pissed. He jumps back in, chases after Shane, but Triple H gets in his way and tries to put him in a pedigree. Michaels reverses it, hits Triple H with Sweet Chin Music, and then he chases the McMahons out of the Royal Rumble. So they kind of did that spot to set up the McMahons versus Michaels angle. I think it was McMahonism versus Shawn Michaels, and his tag team partner is God. Man, 2006 was a crazy year. The final four are Rey Mysterio, RVD, Triple H, and Randy Orton. So the first two guys who enter the Rumble are also in the final four. Well, it comes down to Triple H, Rey Mysterio, and Orton. Triple H goes to give Rey a spine buster. Rey reverses it and flips him out of the ring. Triple H gets mad, pulls Rey out under the rope, so he's not eliminated, throws him into the stairs, then throws him back in. Orton's just standing over him like, I've won this thing. I've got it. Rey Mysterio is out. So he's kind of just standing around him, posing. He picks Rey up. He's going to toss him out, but Rey gives him a head scissors and flips him out at the last second for the win, making Rey Mysterio the 2006 Royal Rumble winner, and I believe he won. He holds the current record for longest time spent in the Royal Rumble because of this event. He was in there for a really long time, and that's another thing. Like, this Royal Rumble went on for a long time, and then they still had two more matches. Like, this should have definitely been the main event. It's what a lot of people wanted to see. And once they got Rey Mysterio as the winner, they were excited about that. That should have closed the show. I mean, after all the stuff that happened with Eddie and the fans chanting Eddie, like, they chanted Eddie louder and more often than anybody else on this show the entire night. So they should have ended the show with Rey winning and then everybody chanting Eddie, and it just would have been a great show people would have liked, but they chose not to. So you go backstage, and Rey is celebrating his win. Benoit, Malenko, Chavo are there. Edge comes up to him and says, if you think you're going to, challenge me for the title, it's not going to happen. You're not going to beat me. Kind of putting a killjoy on the whole celebration for Rey Mysterio. And he goes out, and they start the next match, which is John Cena versus Edge for the WWE Championship, which Edge is the holder of. Now, I'm not a huge Edge fan. He's a good wrestler. I just never really was a huge fan of his. And I'm not really a Cena fan, but, I can respect that he's wrestled consistently all these years. So just watching this match from a, non-biased standpoint, it was a pretty good match, but I would still have to say it was because of Edge. Edge was just a great heel. He's got Lita out there with him. He uses her as a shield at some points. She stands on the apron, and it just worked. It made the match come off really good. They used the stairs a lot on the outside. And I think another thing that made this match so good was Cena actually came across really pissed off. Like, he was mad at Edge for screwing him out of the title. When they cut promos on each other, Cena was actually very angry. So it felt believable. And it was a good match. Cena actually does win the match. He hits Edge with the FU, which is what it was called at the time, and then the STFU, and he taps out. So Lita and Edge are walking backstage. They're defeated. They're upset. And they come across Hacksaw Jim Duggan, who says he was told to come up to Lita and say, "Ho!" And he does his old catchphrase, basically calling Lita a hoe, and that was pretty funny. And it was cool to see Hacksaw Jim Duggan. So they go into the main event, which is Kurt Angle as World Heavyweight Champion versus Mark Henry. And this was another good match. I think it was, a lot of credit has to be given to Kurt Angle. I think he's one of the best wrestlers in the world of all time. And this was a really good match. Well, I wouldn't say really good, but it was a good match. I guess after all this stuff on the show, this was pretty good compared to everything else. I mean, it wasn't a horrible show, but it felt like there was a lot of stuff. I think the Royal Rumble kind of dragged on at times. The Royal Rumble match itself didn't have a lot of name guys you would like to see. Had a lot of Sylvans, Rene Dupree's, Eugene characters. So it felt like it kind of dragged on at times. So after this, I was watching the Kurt Angle Mark Henry match, and I just thought this was pretty good. Although it gets really goofy. So they did some spots. What set this up was basically Mark Henry was able to power out of the ankle lock, which no one's ever been able to do. So they go into the match with that in mind. And Kurt Angle hits him with the ankle lock. Mark Henry immediately gets out of it, powers out of the move. Kurt Angle's not able to do his regular stuff. He can't lift him up. He eventually does hit a German suplex on Mark Henry. He does hit him with the ankle slam. And then he gets him in the ankle lock again, but Mark Henry powers out of it, causing Kurt Angle to bump into the referee. Now, Mark Henry's manager is Daivari at this time. So Kurt Angle goes outside and gets a chair. Daivari tries to stop him. He hits Daivari in the head. And he goes in the ring. Now, Daivari, when he got hit in the head with this chair, he got his hands up. It was a protected chair shot to the head, at least as much as you can protect yourself with your hands. But when Kurt Angle goes in the ring, he hits Mark Henry twice in the head with the chair. Mark Henry doesn't put his hands up or anything. He cracks this guy's skull. It was brutal to watch this. I mean, it was an intense chair shot. He goes for the pin, he drags the referee over, and Mark Henry still kicks out at 2. So Kurt Angle's like, what do I got to do to beat this guy? He goes, he undoes the second turnbuckle. He tries to throw Mark Henry into the turnbuckle now that it's been exposed. Henry reverses it, throwing Angle, then charges at him. Kurt Angle hits a drop toe hold, smashes Henry's face into the turnbuckle, gets a roll up, holds the ropes, gets the win. I mean, he had to pull out all the stops here to beat Mark Henry. It just felt really cool. He had hit him with a chair, he couldn't beat him. He hit him with the angle slam, couldn't beat him. 2 ankle locks, couldn't beat him. And even when he finally has him rolled up for the win, he still had to hold on to the ropes. So it was really cool. And then you had, Kurt Angle celebrating. Then all of a sudden, The Undertaker's music hits. And he comes out in a chariot. A horse chariot with druids. The whole shebang. The whole dead man gimmick in full force here. He steps off the chariot. He's standing at the entranceway, staring at Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle's like scared. He's freaking out, holding onto the title. Undertaker motions that he's going to be the next champion. Then he points his hands up at the little monitor type thing that's suspended above the ring, and he shoots lightning bolts out of his hand and hits this thing, causing some pyro to go off. And then a few seconds later, that explodes, hitting the ring with lightning bolts. And it actually hits the ring with so much force from these lightning bolts that the ring collapses. Kind of like when Big Show and Mark Henry broke the ring because of all the weight, and the thing just collapses and the poles and everything go everywhere. That's what happens while Kurt Angle's still standing in the middle of the ring. So The Undertaker uses his powers, I guess, to destroy the ring. And that's it. Show goes off the air. So I was actually enjoying the Kurt Angle Mark Henry match. I watched that and I was like, man, this is pretty good. Kurt Angle wins. Then all of a sudden, the Undertaker comes out and shoots lightning bolts out of his hands, and it was just not the best ending. Way too goofy. I mean, I know wrestling, you gotta suspend your disbelief, but that's just way too much. I don't think anybody can believe that Undertaker is shooting lightning bolts out of his hands. So it doesn't make any sense. But other than that, it was a pretty good show. The Royal Rumble match itself was fine. Like I said, it just wasn't a lot of, you know, big star guys. It was a lot of the Eugene, Simon Dean guys, the Mexicools, and just a lot of guys who weren't really over at the time. But, it wasn't that bad. It's not the worst Royal Rumble, I don't think. But it's also definitely not the best. And I just think that they should always put the Royal Rumble as the main event. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the show, and I will be reviewing the Royal Rumble 2012 this Sunday. And I will be back for Impact tomorrow night. And I think I'm going to do a Royal Rumble prediction show also before the pay-per-view, just giving my thoughts on who I think's going to win and, who I think's going to win each match and going down the card. So I hope everybody enjoyed this review, and we'll be back to check out these other shows I'm doing. Subscribe if you haven't, and just continue to watch my videos and enjoy them. Thank you. Bye.